Okay, so this is a book that I've been dying to read.
Twilight.
Listen. It's
She
a
didn't
book that I've
say
been
no.
dying to read.
Oh my god. Imagine. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Romancing the Monsters. I'm Em.
Hi, I'm S.
I'm Seth.
And today we have a very exciting episode for you.
Oh my gosh, I've been
I'm
waiting.
excited for it. We are kicking off a whole new series on the podcast, which we're hoping will come back, I don't know, 2 or 3 times a year. And we are calling it Face Your Monsters. And the concept of this series is to face the monster that is your TBR. And so essentially, or at least in my case, it's a real monster. It's a real thing. But essentially, I feel like we all have that one book. We added it years ago, but for whatever reason, you just keep thinking about it and you keep putting it off over and over again, but it's still in the back of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, you're scared it didn't age very well, or maybe it's a book that you're gonna love, and so you keep putting it off, or maybe you've been told it will get you really emotional, or the hype is really big, and that's scary in and of itself. What we're doing is we are challenging ourselves, but also you, our listeners, to tackle that book. Here on Romancing the Monsters, we are all about identifying our monsters, our inner monsters, and then letting them go. It is time to let go, y'all. We have to read those books. It's been long enough. Just to make things even more exciting for us, we, and by we I really mean I, made up a rule, which was we weren't allowed to tell each other what we had picked. So each of us picked one book, or at least I think we all picked one book, but who knows? We might have surprises. And we don't know what the others read. And today, it shall be revealed. And I am very excited to hear what my co-hosts have read.
I am so excited.
Yeah.
So not only could we not tell each other what we read, but also that means, it was against the rules to even mark it on Goodreads because obviously we are friends with each other on Goodreads. We can't even talk about it on Twitter. We can't talk about it on Instagram. Literally nowhere we could talk about this book.
It was agony.
It really was.
The number of times that I almost wrote it somewhere, tweeted about it or marked it as read on Goodreads or whatever it was. It was constantly on my mind. Oh, I can't add it. I can't do this. I can't tell anyone that. And it was pain, just constant pain. Yeah. But I'm to blame for that.
After today, you will be able to do that.
But it's fun. Y'all have to admit it was fun though.
It was fun. It was.
I don't know what you guys read, and that makes me excited because I'm it could be anything.
As soon as we're done recording, I'm uploading my favorite quotes, fan art
on my
Instagram.
Wait, there's fan art?
Wow, okay. S really loved her book.
So then who's going to go first? Rock, paper, scissors.
I can go. Okay.
All right.
I don't know if I'm ready. I'm not ready. Okay, go ahead. Do it.
Should I? Okay. Okay, so my book.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a book that I've been dying to read.
Twilight.
Listen.
She didn't say no. Oh my god. Imagine.
Okay, so I pushed this book back because of the hype.
Ooh. Should we try to guess? Okay, give us information without revealing what it is, and we'll try to guess what it is. That's fun.
I'll just say green.
Green.
Green?
Green and a lot of hype. Green and a lot of hype. Seth. Okay. Give us a genre.
I have to be careful. I have my book right here.
Oh, this is fun. I'm having so much fun right now. I don't even care if y'all are not having fun. I'm having so much fun. Okay.
Green and a lot of hype. Is it the lady in the orc? Because they're green? No.
No.
I'm thinking she said green because maybe the cover is green.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But then I was like, the orcs are kind of green.
But like, what book is green?
It's a really known book. So on here it says that it's a romance novel and I guess like a historical fiction.
When was it released?
2017.
Okay, I know what it. Okay, I know what it is. 7 Lives of Evelyn Hugo. Is it?
Yeah.
Ding 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 ding! I got it.
So it's the seven husbands.
Oh
of
yeah,
Evelyn Hugo.
that's the one.
Yeah. So this is one of the books that I've been excited to read, but I pushed it back because of the hype, and then because, you're excited to read the book, but what happens? Like, what if you read it and it ends up being like, meh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you've read other books by this author, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. So I read the Daisy Jones
And the Six.
and that book was incredible too. So I read this one and I freaking loved it. Like, it was amazing.
Really?
I really, really loved it. Yeah. And
I'm so happy.
yeah, and it made me cry at the end too, like just thinking about it. It really made me cry. So just should I say like a little bit about the book?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the book is about an old Hollywood star named Evelyn Hugo who decides at the age of 79 to give one final interview to an unknown journalist named Monique Grant. So in this interview, you learn about like all the husbands that she's had, what she went through since she's got into Hollywood and making movies. You learn about all the loves that she's had, like about all of her selfish moments, all the hearts that she broke. It was emotional, it was heartbreaking. And like, I love the way this author writes because you don't feel like you're reading a fictional book. You feel like the characters are actually real.
Mm-hmm.
You freaking feel the love. Thinking back, like it makes you realize like to not take the people that you love for granted. Because life is so freaking short and like anything can happen. You can lose anyone in a blink of an eye. I'm so freaking emotional right now. It's so good. Like, okay, I don't want to cry.
I wish I could hug you right now. Like, this is amazing that a book can touch you this much.
No, oh my god. I'm not gonna cry. Ew.
Emotions. We're facing our monsters today, yes. We're gonna get emotional.
It's a freaking good book. I recommend it, and if I were to give it a rating, I would give it a 10 out of 5.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm excited that the rights for it have been bought.
Ooh.
And I guess it's going to become a movie.
Ooh.
Oh
Or a
my
show,
gosh,
I'm not
that's
too sure.
amazing.
So I'm excited.
It's been on my list too. I just never got around to reading it, but like hearing how much it's touched you and like how much like it resonated with you and it's still with you despite reading it like a week ago.
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like that's a testament for how amazing and how well written it is.
And how so many other people connected with it too. Like sometimes the hype is not necessarily something to fear. We fear it so often because it's like, ooh, everyone loves this book. I bet you I'm gonna be the one who doesn't. But then sometimes like the hype is truly worth it, and like it truly means that this book is special and like is doing something that so many people are connecting with.
Mm-hmm.
So I do love that. Did you do the audiobook for this book or?
I did the audiobook, and then halfway through I did a little bit of the paperback because I own it.
Okay.
And then I did a little bit of the ebook. So I switched between all three. So I'm sorry, Marge, I kind of kicked you out of my Scribed account because I needed the ebook.
I did not even go on Scribe.
So
she wasn't
like, just
playing
in
around.
So I was like, just in case if Marge goes snooping into my Scribe, I didn't want you to see that I got the book while I was
That's
reading
smart.
it.
You have all things covered, S.
Well, I mean, she went the extra mile, but the thing is, I was already out of your Scribed account because I got my own,
okay.
so I was already not logged into it.
Okay, so I was just like, just in case if Marge still has it, I'm gonna kick her out real quick.
I love that. Sometimes, because, like, I don't know about you guys, but, like, sometimes you don't read a book, and then it just becomes such a huge thing in your brain, if that makes sense. Like, you create a story out of a story that you haven't read. Like, you just imagine what it is, you know, and then you read it, and ultimately it's like not disappointing always, but sometimes it is, and sometimes it's just way different, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and so this is what this book was. Like, I kind of had an idea of what it was going to be about.
Yeah.
But it ended, so this released 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So I've been good about not really reading spoilers for it. So I kind of knew what it was about, but it ended up being a lot more different, and it ended up being like a lot more, I guess you can say. And there was like a moment in the book where I like freaking gasped out loud. I was just like, wow, like this isn't at all what I expect, because there's like a little twist.
Okay.
And I was like, I did not expect it to go that way, I guess you can say.
That's nice. I love when books surprise you in the best ways. Why do you think it took you 4 years to actually pick it up? Is it because of like the hype around it and like your fear that maybe you wouldn't like it as much as everyone else did?
Exactly that. And because supposedly I would say, oh, I don't have time, like I'll make time for, you know.
Yeah.
There's always time to read the book, but so that's the main reason, because of the hype and just because I didn't want to hate it.
Well, I'm happy you loved your book. I'm so happy you did.
Thank you.
Can we segue into mine? Are we ready
Sure.
to segue into mine? Because I feel like we talked about books that you kind of imagine what the story is, and then you read the book and it's completely different. That's my book as well. So, I'm going to make y'all guess because I think it's fun. My book, I'll say blue, I'll say older, and I'll say there is a name in the title. Oh, and I'll say that one of you has read it.
Can you say which one?
That's cheating, I feel like.
Can we do a genre?
Okay, I will say genre. It's a little bit of everything. This author writes emotional, character-driven, inspirational, slightly spiritual books.
I suck at this game. I think I'm just gonna drop out.
I'm like looking at my shelves real quick, just in case.
Okay, I will confirm that it's S who's read it, not
Okay,
yourself.
then.
Blue, older book.
Yeah.
And it has like the character's name in it?
Yeah. I believe it came out in 2014. It has the word law in it.
The Law of Moses?
Yes, I read The Law of Moses by Amy Herman.
I love that book.
I saw that you rated it 5 stars. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
So, I read The Law of Moses by Amy Herman, which I've read Amy Herman before. I've read A Different Blue by her. I read one of her fantasy novels.
Is it The Bird and the Sword?
Yeah, that one. But that being said, The Law of Moses, for whatever reason, was like that book that I just kept thinking about. And I have the receipts. And I will send the receipts to you. Because we know that there are over 4,000 books on my TBR, right? Like 4,405 books to be precise. This, ladies and gents, is book numero uno on my list.
No way!
Number
Really?
1 on my goddamn TBR. I'm sending the receipt right now so that people can confirm.
You're starting from the top and making your way down.
Yeah.
It
We
is-
can confirm.
Yep, confirmed
And-
over here.
I have had this book on my mind since 2015. I do not know why. I think it's the cover for me that really drew me in. It's like this beautiful watercolor cover with like just the Moses eye sort of peeking through, and there was something almost haunting about the cover for me. And the reason why I haven't read this book is because Amy Herman she's an incredible writer who is gonna make you cry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she does.
She's gonna bring on the pain eventually, and you are gonna suffer a little bit. And obviously, she writes romance, so eventually she'll give you the happy ending that you need and crave. But she's also the kind of writer that sometimes challenges your idea of a happy ever after, which can be quite scary But you kind of have to go in expecting pain and knowing that even if it's not your idea of a happy ever after, she'll always find a way to make the story as satisfying as possible. But that's what was scary to me. It was like, oh, am I in the right place to read this? What if it's one of those endings that's maybe a little bit tougher to digest? And so I kept pushing it back to later and later and later, and here we are in 2021, you know, like 6 or 7 years later, and I've finally read it, and I loved it. It is such a special book. Like, it's nothing like what I thought it was gonna be.
Really?
Yeah, I was imagining something completely different, and then you would ask me like, well, what were you imagining? And I'm like, I don't even know now what I was imagining, because now the book is just what it is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And The Law of Moses is... It's a difficult book to explain because I feel like a lot happens. It's sort of, there's two time periods, no, but like there's like the sort of like the before and the now type. It's like sort of divided in two that way.
Okay.
So I guess it starts off with Moses, who in the beginning, like the before part, is a young teenager. He's kind of written exactly like how teenage boys are, which is extremely unlikable. Just dumb, young, and yeah. And Moses is kind of a strange kid. First of all, he can see the dead. The dead speak to him, but no one knows that because he won't tell them. Because everyone already believes him to be kind of a little bit crazy, a little bit weird. He doesn't really have friends. He's never had friends, so he's kind of seen as a bit of a reject.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's kind of suspicious of him because there's been disappearances across town of girls, young teenage girls. And Moses, of everyone, knows things that others don't, and like he will paint, like Moses is an artist, and essentially the ghosts that he sees tell him things, and he sort of expresses that through his art. That's how he expresses it. So he will paint things that nobody else would know except if you had asked that dead person about it, if that makes sense. And so everyone's suspicious of him. People kind of think that he did it.
Oh, okay.
So him and Georgia, who is the heroine of this book, they kind of already knew each other because Moses works on their ranch. Because Georgia's parents own a ranch where they help kids that with, you know, special needs.
Mm-hmm.
And Georgia kind of always had an affinity for broken ones because they would take in these horses that were a little bit more difficult to deal with, a little bit more wild, or needed more love, you know, as a result of maybe an abusive environment or something like that. And so that's kind of always been what she had in her heart, like what she loved doing. But anyway, despite her having kind of a crush on Moses all her life, because he's, you know, mysterious and broken, like she likes them, she never really acted on it until one night. She's at a rodeo, and she almost gets kidnapped and assaulted by this creepy-ass man on the side of a road, and Moses is the only one who sees part of it. He doesn't see who did it to her, but he finds her afterwards, and she's like bound with ropes, and I think she's gagged and stuff, and she's, you know, clearly shaken by what almost happened to her. And Moses is the one that finds himself in that situation, and obviously people are already suspicious of him. But Georgia knows it's not Moses who did it, and so the two of them kind of have this bond between them that is created off of that night. Because they understand each other and they kind of feel like they are all that each other has, if that makes sense. And so the first part of the novel is very much like young teenagers in love. It's very fast. It's very intense. It's like, oh my God, you're my whole world, and like, there's nothing outside of you type of thing.
Okay.
But also, like, Moses is such an asshole sometimes. Like, he's exactly like a teenage boy who's like, I love this girl, therefore I'm gonna be mean to her. You know?
Yeah.
So that's the first part. But there's so much more to this book. And, like, I don't want to say what the second part is about, because I do think that ruins the book. Because, like,
Yeah.
a lot happens in this book. And it's not just teenagers in love, because there's, you know, that time gap in between parts 1 and 2. And so, you know, like I said, there's paranormal elements in this book, which prior to reading it, I never would have thought that there would be. There's obviously the suspense of what is going on with these girls disappearing, and it's still happening, and what's going on, and who was the guy that almost assaulted Georgia years and years ago, and that's kind of left unfinished and has to be revisited. It's the kind of relationship, and this is like pure Amy Harmon writing, like, she knows how to chip away at your emotions in a way that, like, you don't realize she's chipping away at it, you know, slowly, but then suddenly you're just crying. And you're like,
yeah,
I don't know how I got here, but here I am. You know, and you're like, yeah. I didn't think I cared that much, but now I care, you know? And those paranormal elements are explored in the most heartbreaking ways. Like, it's just, I can't tell you why, because it's a spoiler, but I really freaking wish I could, because that kind of makes the whole book, like, the story lives within that spoiler, you know? I know it kind of sounds like it isn't much when I just explain it like that, like, it sounds like every other book, but trust me, it is so, so, so worth it. It is a beautiful, unique little book that will leave you most likely crying. And I did the audiobook, and it was incredible.
Really?
Incredible. And it was my first audiobook where it was 2 narrators, and I loved them both. Like, they did such a good job. And what I don't like about dual narrators is that you'll get, like, one character's voice through one narrator, but then the other narrator does the same character, and it sounds different because obviously it's a different person. But then sometimes for me, the voices get lost. It's like, I don't know who this character is anymore, what they sound like. But somehow these 2 narrators did an amazing job of, like, Moses still sounded like Moses, whether it was the male narrator or the female narrator doing him, and, like, both of them had such emotion in their voices. It was, like, an incredible performance, like, I rarely see in audiobooks. And, like, this is where I'm just preaching at this point.
No, go ahead.
But this is the kind of, like, Amy Harmon, her writing, I can't explain it. There's something about it. It just comes alive. Like, you know how you were explaining how, like, the characters are just freaking alive? They're just, you can't, like, sort of can't believe that they're not real. This is what Amy Harmon does. Like, her characters are so unique, and they have such a clear voice that when it translates to audiobook, it's like, wow. Like, it doesn't sound like other audiobooks where it's kind of like, you know, just someone reading a story. It's like, no. This is the character, them. Like, they're alive, and they're telling you their story as they've lived it, you know? So, incredible work. I really loved it. And I don't, like, I'm just sitting here like, why do I always fear her books? Like, why do I always wait years and years and years to read one? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably because a different blue fucking wrecked me. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, like, I feel like you need to have a few years pass before you get wrecked again.
Well, I mean, yeah, that would be the sensible thing to do, probably. Like, literally just sitting in my bed, like, listening. Like, I don't do that. Like, when I'm listening to audiobooks, like, I'm doing something else, blah, blah, blah. But then now I was just so captivated, I was literally staring at a wall, just listening to the book. So,
it was that good.
Yeah, I loved it. All right, Seth.
All right. I just feel like now I'm just a downer.
No, it's gonna be
because, like, you both
fun.
had such great, like, words to say about your book, and then there's me, and yeah.
Let us guess.
Feel bad
Let
now.
us guess.
Okay, so it's actually on your TBR, Marge. Not that you would probably even realize
I'm
it.
taking one book off my TBR today, is what you're saying.
One book less. Okay, This author is actually pretty famous for her mafia books, I believe. But this is a contemporary. I don't know where else to go. The cover is like white and red.
J.M. Darhauer?
No.
White and red. Keep going. I'm good at this. I'm good at guessing.
Okay, it released in April of 2013, so it's an oldie.
Okay, yep. Very old.
So I don't even know where else to go. It's pretty popular. It has around like 25,000 ratings or reviews. It was pretty big. I remember it being big.
Okay. Give me a letter, maybe first letter of a name, maybe.
Of the book name, sure. It is F. And it's like it's a 2-word title, but it's hyphenated.
I'm drawing a blank. My brain is literally blank.
Yeah, I don't think you would know it because it's probably been on your list since you got Goodreads. Well, what little Sephra added when she just finished high school. It was Friendzoned by Belle Aurora.
Oh. That's an old book.
I know. I went really old. I went through my Goodreads and I was like, okay, let's start from the beginning.
Before you start, I want to know why that one. Like, I'm curious about that. Like, how did you end up with that one in particular?
Okay, I chose this one because I wanted a contemporary book. And I really wanted to stay in like the first like year of my list, if that makes sense. Like I kind of wanted to be like as old as it could be because I wanted to see how much I've changed as a reader since then, and like what I liked then is it the same that I liked now. Safe to say no. I don't like the same thing I liked then. And it mainly, I mean, if this book was written now, and I hate to say this, by a different author, maybe I would have liked it. But I just couldn't get behind Belle Aurora's writing in terms of, like, I don't know if she's different now or if she's different with other books, but, like, this one was very much, like, I was reading a description, like, the character actually would say, like, hi, my name is blah, 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 blah. And I honestly felt like I was reading a book written by, like,
but
a 5-year-old.
But it's very 2013.
Is it, though? Because I don't
like
recall books ever really, like, listing things down or, like, actually saying, oh, I'm going to go and do this now, and then they go and do it. Be like, oh, I just did this, so I'm going to go do this and this. I feel like...
Was it maybe her first book?
I don't know, actually. That's a good thing. I'm going to check.
Can you research that, please, S?
So, that one came out 2013. Then there's Willing Captive, 2013. I want to say... Yeah.
It could have been her first book, which, I mean, honestly, like, there are aspects of the story I really enjoyed, in that being, like, the family concept, the just overall, like, their relationship, the way it started and, like, how it built up. I really enjoyed that because I just feel like it was just good. Like, it was, like, very on brand with 2013 in the terms of, like, obviously he was a man whore, and, like, the only way he would have actually gotten to know her is if they became friends, and, like, she did friend zone him at the first time they met, and, like, obviously he wanted more as time went on, and I feel like their start of their relationship was really funny and, like, really good to see, and then as it progressed, he was the one that kept wanting more and more, and, like, it was good in that sense, but for me, I couldn't get behind the writing and how the author needed everything to happen, like, at once. She even, like, she gets kidnapped. She gets, like...
Whoa.
like, her ex comes back at, like, in the, like, the same chapter, and it's just, like, it was a lot. It was a lot to deal with, and I don't know. I just feel like I'm happy I read it because it's off my list now, but I also feel like, obviously, when I was in grade 8 going into grade 9, my perception of relationships and also, I guess, what romance actually is was a lot different than what I think it is now. And it wasn't a challenging book at all. So, of course, I think back in the day, this would be the book that I would eat up and, like, read and, like...
Okay, that was my question. Do you think that your 2013 self would have liked this book?
I think I would have liked the relationship and their story. Yeah, I think I actually would have read the whole book, to be honest. I would have liked it and enjoyed it back then, because I was like, what?
Oh, so you didn't read the whole book?
Yeah, I finished it. So I decided I wasn't going to do another book. I was just going to read this out and, like... listen to you, Marge, and like, because we also said if we didn't like it, we would also talk about it because obviously it's a learning experience for us.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just like the book didn't age well. Like you can honestly like read it and like be like, shit, I'm cringing. Because there's so much slut shaming in this book. And it was just like, it was so hard to read about. And back then in 2013, 2012, like it was kind of a norm, which honestly it hurts my heart to say. But like the main guy, Nick, he had a woman before he met Tina, which is the main girl. And like, obviously they would just be like having sex together. But like, he didn't even have respect for her. And like, just the way he treated her, it was just awful. And like, also like the main girl, like she didn't like her as well because of her past with the guy that she is in love with. It's just like it was just not great in that sense.
But yeah, it's all right to say that because we often say like, oh, readers change over time, like your book tastes change and evolve, and like similarly writers change, you know, they get better and better. So
exactly,
if this is truly her first book, then I think most authors would probably say, yeah, my first book is not my best. You know, I feel like most of them would admit to that and think like, yeah, I've grown as a writer.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want to hate on Bella Aurora because I feel like this book was, like we said, her first book, and she's also moved to mafia or like darker romances since then. And I think a lot of these aspects in this light contemporary book would have worked a lot more better in a mafia or dark romance world. 100% agree.
Have you read those?
I haven't, but they're on my list, and they've been on my list for a while, but I just decided to go with her contemporary book.
Next episode.
So you haven't read Raw by her?
No, but it's on my list.
Wow, you are literally the only person on the planet who hasn't read Raw.
I know.
I'm surprised you didn't pick that one, but you did say you wanted contemporary, so I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, I was, because I think I just finished like a darker romance, and I kind of just wanted to get out of like that headspace and have a palate cleanser, and I just wanted a contemporary, a lighter read, maybe some laughs.
But Steph, you didn't really explain to us what the book was about. Friend-zoned.
Oh shit, sorry, I was about to shitting on it. I'm so sorry. So basically, quick rundown. We got Tina, who runs like a clothing store, and across the street is a club run by our main guy, Nick. So she sends him candy because she sees him and she's like, oh my gosh, he's so hot. So she decides to send him candy. And then he's like, what the heck? Who sends me candy? And so he gets his cousin to come pick her up and then he bodily takes her to the club. And then she's like, wait, what's going on? And then he's like, oh my gosh, her ass is so nice. And then what happens? What happens is she turns around and then she's like, oh my gosh, let's be friends. And then he's like, wait, did I just get friend zoned? And like end up like doing that for a while. And then she ends up starting, like, she bakes apparently, and like her baking is amazing. So she randomly decides to send cupcakes to her new friend. And like, of course, all his boys fall in love with her and her baking. And he also gives her VIP passes to come to the club. And like, I don't know where else to go with this. And and basically you find out.
This does sound very 2013.
Yeah, it's so on brand for 2013.
I don't even know. Like, what the fuck is the thing with like she sends him candy and he's like, all right, I'm gonna send my men to forcefully retrieve you over this candy. Like, I don't think 2013 was even
because he was
there.
confused.
Like, what?
He was confused because, like, obviously he's not someone that receives candy, and like he's like, what is this woman's MO? Like, why is she sending me candy, and does she expect anything in return? Because this man is apparently really hot. Like, every woman turns to look at him hot. Yeah. And then we find out Tina's really a harsh and sad backstory, which honestly was really sad. And why she moved to like a big city. Obviously, things happen. But yeah, anyways, he just doesn't want a girlfriend and like doesn't really look at wanting a family, and then she doesn't want kids because of her past, and she gets kidnapped by a gang member that happens to be his enemy, and then like her ex comes back, and like, anyways, just everything happened at once.
Feels like exactly what you said, that someone just threw in everything and kind of made a plot out of it, which it's what you do with the first book. You just throw in everything you like, and then you're like, maybe not.
What works and what doesn't work. And honestly, for her first book, I'm, like, happy she put herself out there and wrote this book. I'm happy that, like, she is who she is today. Like, I haven't read any of her books after this or, like, before this. Actually, there's not books before this. But I haven't read any of other books. And so, yeah, I just think, you know, just don't let this sway you from reading a Belle Aurora book because it is her first book and it is, you know, contemporary. And it was a 13-year-old girl's, you know, vision of what, you know, she wanted for a romance. So that's why 14-year-old Suffer added this to her list.
Okay, I have a question then, which is sort of tangent to your book. What book did you read way back in the day when you first started reading romance that you would never read today? And you loved it. You loved it when you read it, but now you're like, what the hell was I thinking?
I don't even know. Like, I'd have to go look up my list. Do you have a book?
I can think of a few.
Let's go through the list.
My whole BDSM phase, I don't know what that was. Like, and it wasn't even, like, real BDSM is what's funny about it. You know, like, 2013, that's about, like, that time period, you know, when, like, people were writing quote-unquote BDSM books, but it really wasn't.
Yeah.
And, like, the whole, like, the alpha men went crazy at that point. It was, like, everyone was writing alphas, nothing else. There's a couple books in that phase that I kind of wish I hadn't read.
Oh, okay. So for me, I think it would be... Have you girls ever read the author H.M. Ward?
That rings a bell.
I've heard of that author.
Yeah, so I read a couple of her books. And, like, I remember, like, certain things, and I'm thinking, like, back, like, if I were to read that now, like, it would be an automatic DNF.
I think mine is Sylvia Day. No offense towards the woman. I just, now that I think about it, I'm like, why was I reading her books? They're not for me.
Okay, I'm going to be a bit more controversial with mine. I think it would be City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. Why the heck was I eating up this incestuous romance?
How is it incestuous,
Really?
though? Everyone says that, and I'm always
Well,
lost.
because they don't know, they don't find out that they're not siblings until book 3.
Oh. And they're still
like-
having a romance. Okay, well.
Yeah, so it'd be that one.
I don't know what kind of flowers in the attic type of shit that is, but okay. Just, there's a lot of things from that period that I wish I hadn't read. But you know what? They made us who we are today. So this is it for this episode. Hopefully you are gonna face your own monsters, listeners, and pick up a book from your TBR. It doesn't have to be that old. Just the book that you're putting off for whatever reason. And finally read it. And if you do, please let us know what it was. I'm curious. I want to know. I love this surprise. I love this aspect of it. That's not going away, even though my co-hosts would probably prefer it to not be a thing. But, you know, I make the rules. And if you do read a book, an older book or not an old book, message us online. You can find us on Twitter at TheRTMPod. Also on Instagram at Romancing the Monsters Podcast. You can email us at romancingthemonsterspodcast@gmail.com. And we're on YouTube. So just search Romancing the Monsters Podcast and you should find us as well. If you want to find me specifically. I feel like Seth is looking at me right now and she can see my brain trying to work through, like, remembering everything I have to say.
No, I'm honestly just thinking about how much of an idiot I am and I can't do math. Can I just tell you something really quickly? I said I was 14 when I added this book to my TBR. Clearly I cannot math, and I would have been 18. Anyways.
Well,
continue!
Yeah, if you want to find me, you can find me on both Twitter and Instagram at Foes and Lovers.
And you can find me on both Twitter and Instagram at ButThisBook.
And you can find me, Seth, on both Instagram and Twitter at Pros with Blows.
All right. See you next week.
Bye.